Today is going to be a very special episode of the Billable Hour Podcast. We are going to talk about why not to fire any one of us, particularly your CPA or your lawyer or your marketing team during a recession. So I think the best place to start on this is the CPA. Why do you think people are going to be cutting their professional services and their vendors during a recession?
Well, anytime you're going through a budgeting process and you're concerned about where money's going to come from in the future and how you're going to spend it.
Cut Gigio first.
I mean, that's just a good rule for life. We're not talking about that.
For life. If you're on the basketball team, cut Gigio first.
Oh, there's not even a question there. Come on.
No
Come
question.
On. But if you're talking about a budget, there are some larger line items that stand out. Obviously, everyone's going to look at personnel costs. You're going to look at things like rent, which is becoming more of an easy cost to reduce these days, remote work, etc. But professional services often get devalued in a time like this. And, do we really need someone to file our taxes? Do we really need someone to come in and look at the books? We can do that ourselves. That's a lot of what I hear in times like this. And
yeah, my cousin can Photoshop, right? It's just
totally
a $20 a month
I can just
subscription.
download Adobe.
We'll just get him a laptop and a Photoshop license, and he'll be good to go.
All those forms
I don't
online,
need Ankur.
right?
We don't need Ankur to build us a website.
How about Canva?
Canva is what we should all be switching to in this recession.
Just Canva.
Exactly.
LegalZoom does its job for a lot cheaper too, right?
Exactly.
Unless they become a sponsor, then my answer is different. But
if they are a sponsor, I change my answer.
For all the brands at home, we are for sale.
No shame in this game.
Please email the Billable Hour Podcast at gmail.com.
That's right.
That is not the email ID, and Zach will get you the email.
Yeah, we'll share that at some point.
AP at the Billable Hour Podcast.
That we nailed. But in all seriousness, though, these outside sort of costs do get looked at with a magnifying glass. Whenever you have to start worrying about, how are we going to pay our bills? And it's one of those things, it's the short-term thought versus the long-term. And that's just really concerning.
I have some friends on LinkedIn that are CPAs and that are attorneys and that are marketers. They need to know how to save their portfolios right now. What advice do you guys have? What are you guys doing to save your portfolios?
Well, so at the outset, let's take one step back. Part of our discussion is the fact that a recession is oncoming. And what's going to end up happening is that everyone's going to start tightening their purses, right?
Wait, CPA, is this true? Is a recession coming?
That's what everyone seems to think.
People think that a recession is coming.
Indicators, and just the thought of a recession coming is enough to start the ball rolling on that front. But the economic indicators are telling us the story that it's not only coming, but it's here.
Yeah.
All right, everyone at home, you guys heard that. Zach has said that it's coming.
Yeah.
Gigio K.
Thank you for that.
That it's coming.
No. I'm expecting, based on expert testimony from Zach Gordon, that a recession is coming.
That is not accurate on the record.
As a disclaimer runs.
Ironically, Gigio, we're going to need that disclaimer just all the way across.
No, but on a serious note, so I don't know if a recession is coming, but there are expectations that a recession is coming. And what happens in a circumstance when a recession comes? A lot of companies start tightening the purses. They start trying to cut back on costs. And what I'm trying to impress upon our viewership is that the cost to not cut is legal and professional services like accounting.
So what is the cost to cut?
You have to figure it out, because ultimately when companies think about legal or accounting or outside services, what they're thinking about is
marketing.
Yeah, or marketing. This is an expense. They think of it as an expense as opposed to some kind of cost generator. And don't get me wrong, yes, when you're paying a lawyer, you're creating an expense, but they're also creating avenues that are going to protect your risk, right? For as a lawyer, and the same thing for an accountant. They're creating avenues that are going to help you budget differently, right? And so one of the ways to do it is to speak to an accountant, figure out different line items, like, for example, he mentioned remote work, reducing leases, things of that nature, where you can figure out alternatives to cutting legal expense.
I apologize. I was asking the attorney the question I should be asking the CPA.
Exactly.
So Zach, how do you decide as a business owner where you can cut? Now we know professional services and the ones that protect you from risk might not be the best choice.
Right.
But I'm sure you've seen companies have really tough decisions to make.
And
So how do you look at that, and what should business owners do?
first, it's diving into the numbers, understanding, putting the budget to the side. What are we actually spending? Taking a look at the statement of cash flows and at the most granular level, what's coming in and what's going out. And typically the biggest areas we look at, personnel, which I think that's a very long conversation for us to have. Things like rent is usually pretty high. And there's usually some ancillary, some office, there's some technology, there's, all these other ancillary things. But unfortunately, personnel is usually the first place to look.
All right. So then, if you need to protect your portfolio as a professional CPA
Right.
and as a professional attorney, or as the best marketer in the world, what do you do?
Get more involved, which is very counterintuitive.
Get more involved. You gotta walk me through that.
So believe it or
I'm
not,
running their entire sales platform. So how much more involved can I be? I got to run their books too.
well, listen, as a professional, you can take a look at how they're spending their money, how they're spending their personnel. And if they have a big accounting team, if they have a big finance team, maybe they have a big, in-house counsel, whatever it might be, that's a significant cost. So is there a way for us as professionals to step in and mitigate some of that cost for them? So outsourcing some of those services for them, sitting in and helping to mitigate some of that.
So cut Gigio K.
No, bring him in-house,
Bring him in-house.
No, not necessarily.
Well, outsourcing those services to him
Oh,
instead of keeping a general
let go of
counsel
my
in-house.
general counsel and hire a firm.
Listen, I'm not advocating for anyone to get fired, but that's an opportunity.
So
for sure.
I agree with
Okay.
Zach. So one of the things, on Tuesday I was hanging out. I was just telling Zach the story before our podcast. I was hanging out with a buddy of mine that I grew up with. He's an executive director of a large not-for-profit. They have like a $30 million.
I was so afraid it was me for a
Oh
second.
my
Okay, no, keep going.
goodness.
Keep going. How's it
Go
going? You could not
on.
talk about what we talked about.
He's like, we didn't hang out on Tuesday. What are you talking about?
Weird.
No, so he runs a large not-for-profit. He's an executive director, been an executive director for this organization for about 15 years. And they have like a budget between 30 to 50 million. However, recently with COVID and everything else, they haven't been able to survive. And one of the things that they have is they have 260 employees on the books. And one of the things that they're doing now is that they're cutting human capital. That's the phrase, right? Human capital. And trying to really hone in on what are the importance of all these individuals. Did we need 5 people to run Facebook ads? Can there be an algorithm that can do it? Do we need 5 people to sweep the floors? Whatever it is. I'm giving you an example, but that's really what they're looking in on. And based on my conversation with him, he said that they were going to cut about 100 employees, which is very unfortunate. But that's they're trying to create efficiencies and human capital in order to do it. That being said, as someone who's a business owner and who's also a person who invests in the market, I don't want people being fired because that has a downturn on other effects of the economy.
Right.
But as a business owner, if you're thinking from a perspective as a business owner, yes, that's the best way to do it, is to figure out how do you create efficiencies within your workforce to do it, and then and if you are terminating these people, or are you doing it, how do you manage your risk on that end? Because these 100 people are thinking about suing you, right? So separation agreements. If you're in New York, for example, where this person was located, the Warren Act, the New York Warren Act. All of these things come into play as to how efficiently to do it. But the one thing you have to start looking at is human capital management.
And the other way to look at that as well is we've talked about businesses scaling. Well, maybe you don't need to hire that CFO at $450,000 a year, or you don't need that controller at $200,000 a year. Bringing in other professionals, getting a whole team for a fraction of that cost. And the same thing, maybe you don't need that in-house counsel. Maybe, you speak to Gigio, or you don't need that CMO. You've got your guy Ankur here.
No, agreed. And one of the things that you have to think about is when you bring folks in the house, and this as a business owner, you're not just paying a salary for hours that they're not working. you're paying benefits, you're paying FICA taxes, you're paying all of these other things in terms of a total 401k. All of these other things are for benefits that you're not just thinking about salary. You're thinking about that X dollar,
And those are the invisible costs.
the
as well.
invisible costs that are on top of like the regular fixed fee that you're paying to this person. Whereas when you're hiring an external firm or external person to help manage these things, you really are just paying a alternative fee. That's it. It's all in. So it sometimes is able to set your expectations a little better.
So let me be devil's advocate. Why do companies want people to be in-house versus just always finding a firm?
Well, sometimes it's tradition. You're running a business. You have your CFO. You have your in-house counsel. That's just how things were done for a long time. These service offerings didn't exist as they exist now until pretty recently. And that's just sort of the novel approach that we as professionals have had to take.
Yeah, that's true. Because and I'm going to be have like a shameless plug right now, right? But
No,
never.
slow down.
It's not a shameless plug for me. It's a shameless plug for this platform and for this podcast because traditionally it was the billable hour, right? And now there are alternatives, which we discussed on our past podcast, where we can talk about the alternatives to fees and how to do that. But traditionally, folks would end up hiring people because they also think that they have more opportunities to work with them on the scaling phase, right? Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about a recession, right? So we're talking about cutting back on certain things. You're not trying to scale at this point. What you're trying to do is you're trying to survive, right? To an extent, you're trying to survive.
Word, yeah.
And so if you're trying to survive at this point, it might be, when you're in the growth phase, yes, hiring. You're trying to hire as many people as possible,
right?
Getting many people on your team as possible. You're trying to increase the notoriety of the business, but at the same time, grind it out into the wee hours of the
and there's
morning,
that
right?
misconception that you need a big team, and that's not true anymore.
Yeah,
it's really not.
So if business owners want to keep people in-house,
right,
and business owners can't find a way to let go of that person, the easiest place that I've found places to cut are all the luxuries. Right? Like you said, whether or not you want to have 4 people cleaning the floors or 5 people cleaning the floors or 5 people doing this, 5 people doing that.
Right.
But additionally, I've always found that the best small business owners tend to have luxuries that they don't even realize are luxuries. But how do you educate someone that those luxuries are things that every other bakery doesn't have? If you're the baker that has the baking 5,000 that does the muffins in 30 seconds instead of doing it in 5 minutes like everyone else.
Right.
Convincing someone to sell that machine, buy the one that everyone else has, and take that $10,000 that they made in that turn to invest back into their payroll or into their ingredients. And that's tough. People don't realize that, right? Something as simple as hardware. Mm-hmm. I've been noticing a lot of companies downgrading their computers, right? So there's this one company out there called Better Plug. I don't know. They're all over my TikTok. It's just like nonstop. get a 13-inch MacBook Air for $300 to $500, depending on what it is.
Okay.
Does every employee need a MacBook Pro? I mean, I don't know, right? There's some employees that probably could get by with just a MacBook Air that's a couple of years old. And there's ways where you could recycle, get rid of, donate, sell any one of these types of devices and massively cut back.
Of course.
On some of these items and things that are happening.
Yeah.
But I just feel like some owners just don't see it. I know I wouldn't have seen my internet speed being something I could have cut back in my old building, right? Because we were technically a tech firm, right? So I didn't want to give up my, I want to download this, I get it in a millisecond.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
But
I could have very easily and saved a couple $1,000.
Is everything.
But who do you listen to get that advice? Is it your CPA? Is it your accountant? Is it your attorney? Is it your board of advisors? Is it books? I mean, where do you guys get the answer, like the tried and true answers of what is considered a luxury?
Oh, that term is very relative, depending on the generation, depending on the industry. I mean, you look at big tech now. Everyone's got the nitro brew you've got as cliche as this, the ping pong tables, the lounges, all that stuff. And actually, a great example for you guys. So my dad's company has an office in Midtown, and right across the hall was this cool new tech firm. I forgot what their name was now, but yeah, they had all the bells and whistles. So huge open concept. Which office is beautiful, to be honest. But yeah, they had the ping pong table, they had the lounge, they had the coffee, the beer, blah 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 blah. Everything.
Are they hiring?
No, they're out of business.
No. What?
Weird.
So you think it's because they overspent on environment and all that?
Everything. I mean, they spent a fortune renovating the space. They had all the perks. It was just, I mean, yeah, for a moment in time, I knocked on that door. Are you kidding? But you need someone with a mature mind. You need someone from outside to come in.
Oh,
and
we need a mature mind. So the mature
well, relatively speaking, in this room, but
the mature one over here seems like he has a comment or two to make.
Yeah.
What's that giggle about?
Well, I'm only laughing because, when you mentioned ping pong table and all the other things like giant size chess boards.
Yep.
These are things that I knew a special someone to have when he started a business. And
he's talking about me.
Weird.
I wonder where this came from.
And yes, I did beat him in life-size chess. But anyway,
but not in regular chess.
Yeah. So let's.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's just circle back to what's important, which is the fact that he had all of these things, right? And unfortunately, that's a personal choice,
Right.
Right. I think having a combination of board of advisors, partners that are going to keep you in check, spouses or significant others that are going to keep you in check, having accountants, all of those things as a combination is very important, because staying grounded as you start a business is very important. And at the same time, you're not always going to have that right person. And I really do believe that. You're not going to have that one person that's going to tell you no. And that person is going to be internally. I know as much as it, so, and one of the, actually I was watching this video. His name is Sadhguru. He's actually very famous. He's like a guru in India who's a part of Hinduism. And
Gigio just admitted that he went full religious.
No.
Wow.
I'm gonna get to my point. And he said something very important and like something I listened to recently. And I'm gonna say this again. You can't do things for the public to see. If you're doing it for other people to see, then it's not going to be as important. Because ultimately you have to do it for yourself. So if you're doing things, if you say you want a ping pong table and you're doing it for yourself, great. If you're doing it but if you're doing it for other external factors to see, then maybe that's a luxury. And so that's so going to Ankur's point about, hey, what is a luxury? Listen, I don't know, but I think it goes to I think it ultimately goes down to your inner person. And I know that we're getting a little deeper than we need to in a legal /
really philosophical for a second.
A legal / CPA / marketing podcast. But ultimately, those factors also affect how a business is run.
All right. As a CPA, what is one luxury you can't give up, even if the recession hits you hard?
Oh man. Honestly, it's going to be the machine. I could not downgrade my equipment.
So
my laptop, there's no way.
The laptop that runs the Excel and the QuickBooks and everything else.
I could not take a step back from that. There's no way.
Okay.
But I also think about it like I'm an accounting nerd, where, if I have a less quality machine, it's going to take me more time to figure things out. Software's going to move slower. I'm going to restart more, et cetera, et cetera. And that just ends up being longer term, more of a pain. I end up losing money that way.
That's fair enough. How about you?
One of the things I won't cut is technology, just like he said. I believe in leveraging technology. Ever since I started working with technology companies like Ankur's and others, I'm telling you, creating efficiency in technology is unmatched. I was one of those, and Ankur knows this. He knows this I'm still not completely tech savvy, and he knows that, but I am more tech savvy than a significant population of lawyers.
So how does this Instagram work? How do I post?
That
came up a little while ago.
Yeah. How do I tag? Remember when I said that?
Oh yeah.
No, but on a serious note, so leveraging technology is very important, and so I would never get rid of technology. I would find other areas, like, for example, now that remote work is in play, I barely go to the office anymore in my city office, and I spend a significant amount of money for my lease in New York City, right? So, is it important? Yeah, my employees are there and they're still working, and we need that set up to an extent. But can we downsize a little bit? Probably,
Right.
you know.
And I think that's where there's really an opportunity. And as corny as it sounds, in this day and age, there's less concern about that face time. About you don't, as a lawyer, having a law firm, you don't need this big fancy office necessarily. It's just not the same, which personally I like as well. I don't think we need that sort of ostentatious presentation as we would have in the past.
All right, guys, everyone at home, I'm telling you guys right now, don't fire Gigio Ninan. Don't fire Zachary Gordon.
Please.
If you have to cut somewhere, cut Ankur Garg. I will sacrifice myself for these two guys.
He's a sacrificial soul.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks for
folks.
tuning in, guys. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.